introduce two individuals from our MCiM community here. And so just very quickly, I'll introduce them and then I'll go ahead and stop sharing so that you can visibly see us all on camera. And so first, I want to welcome Wendy Welch. She is our MCiM mentor, and she is the Behavioral Health Medical Director at Centene Health. And additionally, we have a current MCiM student, Rasika Sirpali, with us as well. She's an imaging informatics manager at Stanford Children's Hospital. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing here so that I can go ahead and see you all here. And so thank you so much for joining us, Rasika and Wendy. I'll go ahead and just address the questions that we have for you all to speak to our prospective students at this point. Wendy, I'm going to go ahead and start with you here. And so the question that we had for you, Wendy, is, in being a mentor, what has your experience been with interacting with students? How are you currently engaging with them? And what are just some brief areas that you've provided some guidance in?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Kevin, for the invitation to be here. So being a mentor for me has just been such a positive and enriching experience. And I would say the MCiM program is really a community. And by that, I mean, as mentors, even though, we're not faculty, we're mentors, we're volunteer mentors, we participate in panel discussions in the evenings, and then students seek us out individually. And I've had, the great fortune of working with two current students, and we meet periodically. The students typically will set that cadence based on the needs that they have. But some of the things that we've talked about in these meetings are really kind of career guidance, because this is a program, obviously, where people work full time. And so one of the common themes has been, how do I take my current career and how do I weave in what I'm learning in my academics with where I'd like my career to go in the future? And so that's been one focus. And then, as Kevin was mentioning, our students sometimes are physicians like I am, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes they haven't been in healthcare. And for those students, one in particular that I work with, I helped showcase how those business skills that she brings to the table are just incredibly valuable to people like me that are physicians in the industry trying to do good things for patients. And I would also say, that this is a diverse group. And so, I might come with certain clinical skills, but there are people in the business side that know how to do a business presentation, which is very different from how you do an academic medicine presentation. And so I think those are some of the things, that come to mind. Lisa, I don't know what your thoughts are on those things.
No, I think that's fantastic. And, Wendy, as far as your engagement as well with our students after some events that we've had as well has been a highlight, I know, for you, and I think for our students as well, connecting with you in the times that we've had those meetings and those open chat discussions. So we really appreciate having you.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's helps. It actually has enriched, some of the ways that I think about some of the things that I'm solving at Centene. And so, the ways that the students are solving some of their problems that they're coming across in the practicums, I've learned from them also. I mean, it's a two-way street. And I am really grateful for this opportunity to be part of this community. It's a really wonderful, wonderful experience.
Thank you so much for sharing, Wendy. And I do see that Tip has joined us. So Tip, I just wanted to quickly introduce you. So Tip Kim is actually an MCiM faculty member with us. And so he's the Chief Market Development Officer at Stanford Health. And so we're super happy to have you here, Tip. I've already introduced Rasika and Wendy. I'm just going to go ahead and ask Rasika her question next, and then we'll come around to you, okay? And so Rasika, you are next on my list to ask a question about your experience with MCiM. So, really, how has your experience been so far at being a student, just giving us that perspective? Can you please expand on just how you're able to manage work and study with the rigor of the program?
Yeah, no, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you for having me here. Last year around this time, I was one of the prospective students planning to send my application in. And it's very exciting to see our next cohort coming in. Cannot imagine it's been a year and so many things have changed. So very happy to be here and answer any questions if the prospective students have at the end of the session. So I think my experience with MCiM program has been nothing but fabulous. I think it just came at the right time in my career. A few things. I think we should take a moment to appreciate, I think, the wonderfully crafted curriculum that we have, which is so different from other graduate programs, which is such a wonderful blend of business, technology, and medicine. And we are introduced to so many different areas, like be it accounting, be it business strategy, healthcare economics, bioethics. And what it makes us do as students is like look at healthcare problems from all these various lenses. And that's the kind of insight I did not have before joining this program. And I feel it's very important for future healthcare leaders to understand healthcare problems and look at healthcare, to understand all these different aspects of healthcare. I think the second important thing for me that really stands out is the diversity of the cohort. And that was one of the questions I had for Dr. Schulman when I was about to make that decision as to how diverse this cohort is going to be. And when I mean diversity, I think our cohort is such a great representation of that. I'm talking about geographical diversity, professional diversity, ethnic diversity. And why it is important to me is I feel like diverse teams, look at problems differently. I think they approach solving problems in a very different way. And I think they're more effective. When some of you will maybe go ahead and work for companies and organizations that have such a global presence, or who knows, you may end up starting organizations that may have global presence. I think having all those different perspectives, I think is super important. I think that's something that I truly appreciate about this program. And I think last but not the least, I think just the wonderful connections that I have been able to make, be it with faculty, with students, and I think all the industry connections. And I don't think I would have been able to do that, without this program. And I think coming to your second question about how I'm able to manage this, a lot of times it's with a full-time job that's demanding and a full-time master's, sometimes you will have competing priorities. I think what I did pretty early on was, I sat down with my boss. And I think it's super important to have a very supportive employer and a team if you work in a team, and sit them down and make them understand why this is important to you, and how that would benefit their organization. And I think I was pretty fortunate because he also went through a similar program when he was in a similar role as mine. So I think when they're invested, I think things become a lot more easier during this program. So I think that's one advice that I would give all the prospective students. And I think the second thing would be effective time management. Like I said, there are competing priorities, and I'm a huge planner. I love planning things. So I usually plan, I know what the deliverables are and, what are the assignments. So I like to assign a certain time block for each of these deliverables. I think, sometimes you get carried away because these courses are so fascinating. So it's important to okay, stop. I need to, assign this amount of time for this. So I think being able to manage your time well and effectively, I think, is key as a student, especially when you have a full-time job. And also, don't forget to have fun. I think your social commitments will look different in this year, but it's also important to have fun. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Thank you so much, Rasika, for that super in-depth, just view of how this program has been for you so far. We really appreciate you providing your perspective on it. Thank you. All right, and Tip, I'm going to go ahead and go on over to you now. So the question that we have for you, Tip, is that can you just speak about your Principles of Business Strategy course in further detail and describe your engagement with MCiM students? How did that look like? And, what was your experience being in the classroom?
No, thank you for having me. So it'll be hard to confuse me with an academic. so I have an MBA, but Linda Hoff, who's the CFO of Stanford Healthcare, and I, as Chief Market Development Officer, are co-taught the Business Principles of Strategy class. And we really try to anchor our class in frameworks that you would learn in an MBA program. But really, what we wanted to do on the margin was to try to present a practitioner's view of the healthcare ecosystem, with all of the real-time strategic trade-offs and decisions, the real decisions that we as a hospital system, as a network, as a player in the healthcare ecosystem need to make. And I think, I think Ruska can say otherwise, but I think, what we were successful in doing is provide a very practical view of how real decisions get made and what the trade-offs need to be, and how a living entity goes about making decisions in a complex world with ambiguity, with imperfect data. And we try to make the decisions and the analysis less about being a tasting tour of cool companies that are out there in the healthcare ecosystem, and more about real hard strategic decisions that we have to make as players in the healthcare ecosystem. And I think that initially, I think it's fair to say, it's a little bit from left field. It's not your standard strategy class, and it's not about just case study after case study. But I think the final project was about people choosing their own case, using in teams, using the Amazon 6-page memo construct to present their case and have it peer reviewed. And I got to tell you that the peer review process and the conversation level of conversation and analysis, both by the presenting team as well as the peer review, was on par, I would think, with any sort of consulting study that you would find out there. And I was a consultant for 23 years, and so I have a good sense of the fluff versus real analysis, and really the peer learning of this team, of these teams, of this cohort was pretty spectacular.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing, Tip. And so, we have some time here to open the floor for anyone who's joining us to ask any questions to our MCiM community that we have here tonight. I did receive one question already, so feel free, by the way, if you're participating in this Zoom, to either send your message via chat, or if you want me to unmute you, that is also available as well. But I do have a question here in the chat, and this one is for Rafika. So a question that came our way already is, what is one thing that you've learned in the program that you are already implementing in your current role?
A lot of things. I think one thing that really stands out is the course that we have this quarter, which is the Organizational Behavior course by Dr. Sarah Singer. I think the project, I think it was very clever, like for her to have her pick one of the organizational behavior problems that we are experiencing at work, and then, try to analyze that from an organizational behavior standpoint, apply necessary frameworks that we can apply, and then, go back and apply your learning at your workplace. So all of us had to pick an organizational problem. It could be like a leadership problem, a team management problem, and then apply different frameworks for that. So I think one thing is it's like whatever you learn in the class on weekends, you truly apply that during the week. I think that was really powerful. So we're about to finish that paper, and I cannot wait to go back and apply all those learnings at my work in the coming months.
Thank you so much for sharing, Rasika. We do have another question here. It looks like, Kevin, this would be a great question for you to answer. The question is, overall, how is learning assessed with tests, essays, problem sets, a final thesis, etc.? I know every class is a little bit different, so Tip, I mean, you can even pitch in on this as well, but I'll go ahead and have Kevin answer first.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. It's each of the courses is slightly different. So some of the classes are do tests. My class does projects. Tips did projects. So it really depends on the material and the objective of the faculty member, what they want people to get out of that class. So I would say it's a mix of tests and projects. It's all participatory. And so, your participation in class is also a big component of all of the different of all the classes. It's not meant at all to be a passive program, as Tip already talked about. Our objective is to get the students actively engaged in discussion in the class.
Great. And then we do have a question here. It says, I'm a second-year medical student currently looking to enter the program after I finish third-year clinicals. Do you recommend that I apply at that time? What sorts of differences and expectations would you have from an applicant who does not have industry or career experience? And what would you be looking for?
Yeah, so thanks for that. I think after the third year entering after the third year makes a lot of sense. After the clinical year, just so you're better able to participate in class discussions. We deliberately have in the class, a distribution of experience from people right out of undergraduate all the way through to people pretty senior in their career. So the things that we're going to be looking for are your interest in the topic, your ability to contribute to the discussion in the class. And one thing that unites everybody from the faculty to the students in the class is passion, that everyone's here because, healthcare is facing so many challenges, and, technology is a pathway for us to really make a significant difference, or maybe the only pathway for us to make a significant difference. And I think that comes across in everything that everyone does.
Yeah, and Wendy, I don't know if you want to pitch on this either, but have you been able to interact with any students who maybe have come from a different industry that is not one that you are super knowledgeable in, but have been able to share, your experience in being in a different area, and how has that gone for you?
Actually, that's what I didn't speak to it specifically, but I have learned so much from one of the students that I'm mentoring, whose background is as a CPA, and she's had some corporate experience also and has a corporate job currently. And she approaches things, her business experience is at a very high level, because in her current job, she does a lot of presentations and is responsible for quite a bit. And at the same time, didn't have any healthcare experience. So it was a great partnership in my experience, from my point of view, and what she's told me also, because I learned from her and she learned from me, and I was able to help her see all the strengths that she was bringing or could bring to the group, to the cohort. Because there are physicians and clinical people that are not going to have those experiences. And I think it just really enriches the experience versus, if you attend like an MBA program that's only for physicians or only for clinicians. I just think that it really has helped me get sharper, like learning her industry, because I on purpose studied her industry and looked at it and read about it so that when we met, I could help her more. And so then that made me sharper. It was really just such a mutually beneficial experience for me. And I think, like Kevin was saying, this is how we're going to solve the big problems that we have in medicine. It's not going to happen by having silos, of different sort of professions. It's going to happen from programs like this, that have technology as a common language, and then bring that diversity that you heard Rasika talk about. The diversity of age, the diversity of ethnicity, the diversity of degrees and experiences. To me, it feels like this is the beginning of, solving what we've got to solve in this country in medicine. It's a mess. I mean, we all recognize it. I was really happy to hear Tip talk about, that the students solve practical, real, current time problems. In my MBA program, that wasn't the case. There was a lot of really good stuff about my MBA program, but one of them was not this. Where I had somebody, who's running a hospital health system, teaching a course saying, hey, this is for real right now, something we're struggling with, and I think that's the benefit of something like that. I don't know, Tip, what do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, these case studies, Kevin's, as a notable exception, his case studies are actually pretty current, right? There's a case study of, the year is 1965, and the principle might be applicable, but it's not just the same level of freshness and topical issues. And what were some of the topics that were the final projects? It was a community radiology imaging solution. It was a Medicare Advantage plan, whether that would work. It was a concierge medicine. How do you democratize concierge medicine with technology? It was a specialty pharmacy play. I mean, these are literally the strategic issues that we're facing, and the students were just they did their own research as well as sort of rely on each other and their own expertise, and the level of conversation and the discourse was spectacular.
Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your pieces. That's fantastic information. I'm going to go ahead and ask a next question that we have here. And so this looks like a good one for you, Kevin, as well. If you're looking for a career change, what kind of positions or jobs can one expect to be qualified for after MCiM?
Yeah, it really kind of depends. I like to think about careers as building on, so what depends what experience you have before you come into the program, and you use the program as additional leverage to move forward. So if you have skills in management that lead you, plus the program leads you down one path. If you have clinical skills, plus the program leads you down different paths. In general, again, we have a very diverse group of people, so we're not looking to place people in one specific aspect of healthcare. We're really preparing them for a variety of different positions across the health sector. But we've seen changes already. I mean, people have already changed jobs even since they started the program with their new skills and their interests. So, I don't have an overall goal. I would say, you want to use a program like this to leverage what you've done before and to think about how to accelerate your career. And that's been the history of this program and the program like this.
And we have another question that came through. This one looks like a great one for Rasika. And so when you are at the Onsites, what is the experience of being there on site with all the different students, and how have your relationships grown since it started?
Yeah, I think the on-site classes, I think they sort of like brings everyone together because, like I said, everyone is a professional. They have their own, the full-time job, or so I think it's all those little conversations that we have in between classes, or sometimes even hands-on projects that we do during the class. I think with every weekend passing by, I think we have got to know each other really well, I think at a very personal level. And I think the beauty of this program is we end up working with different people on different projects, in different courses. I think it's such a great way because there are very few opportunities otherwise to get in touch and that in a regular graduate program. So I think we make the best of it. there could be those little conversations that we have during breaks or during lunch. I think we learn so much from each other. So yeah, I think from my perspective, I think I really look forward to the on-site classes.
It's a fun crew.
Thank you so much, Rishika.
You guys are not boring, that's for sure.
There's a lot of engagement going on for sure on the on-sites. And so another question that we have here is, does our program provide or require the GRE? So I'll go ahead and answer that one for you all. So MCiM does not require the GRE scores for applying. Students are more than welcome to include it if they feel like it would help benefit their application. Due to our, holistic admissions process that I mentioned earlier, we really just rely on your overall experience, your academic background. And so, that way there really isn't a minimum GPA for us or GRE scores that are required. We really just want to see your overall experience. And that is how we take every applicant, how we consider you moving forward. And so I'm going to go ahead and just wrap it up here. I appreciate you all for joining us tonight. A huge shout out to Tip, Wendy, and Rasika for joining us and giving your personal experience with our students. And as I mentioned in the chat, if you're a prospective student looking to join MCiM, we are available at all times. If you have any questions or would like to chat with our team about your personal experience, we're always available. You can email us at mciminquiry@stanford.edu. And so, Kevin, I'll pass it on over to you to close us for this evening.
No, I want to join you in thanking Tip and Wendy and Rashika for joining us tonight. And thank you all for joining. All of us are really enthusiastic about the program and excited by the class that we have today, and really excited by the class that's shaping up for next year. So it's hard to think about. Don't worry, Rashika, we're not replacing you yet. It's hard to think about a one-year program. We're just getting to meet the current students and already working on next year's class. But you're going to have so much fun as a alum, Rashika, you won't have to worry about it, and no homework. So thank you all very much for joining. And as Lisa said, let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.